Ever wonder what it really takes to go from Padawan braid to Jedi Knight? Spoiler alert, it's not just about swinging a lightsaber really well. The Jedi Trials are basically the galaxy's most intense final exam, except instead of multiple choice questions, you might lose a limb, your face, your deepest fears, or discover truths that shake your entire worldview. And yes, Count Dooku might show up to personally administer your test. Today, we're diving deep into the 5 legendary Jedi trials that have shaped heroes and broken spirits for thousands of years. We'll explore why Anakin never took a formal test, how Ahsoka's wrongful accusation became her trial, and why Luke technically failed one of the most important tests. Sit back and relax. This ancient Jedi tradition is way more complex, and way more brutal, than you might think. The Jedi trials aren't arbitrary hoops to jump through. They're an ancient quality control system dating back thousands of years to the Old Republic era. Unlike standardized military tests, these trials are completely personalized because the Council understood that cookie-cutter assessments don't work for beings who can sense motions and move objects with their minds. What's crucial to understand is that these trials weren't about creating unstoppable warriors. The Council had seen plenty of powerful Jedi fall to the dark side. Instead, they tested for wisdom, compassion, self-control, and the ability to face impossible choices without losing yourself. Master Yoda didn't care if you could defeat a dozen battle droids. He wanted to know if you could resist taking revenge on your master's killer. During the Clone Wars, everything changed. Teenagers were being knighted after surviving battles that tested all 5 trials simultaneously. The entire galaxy became one massive testing ground, and the Council recognized that real experiences often surpassed anything they could manufacture in the temple. The trial of skill tested far more than combat prowess. It was a comprehensive examination of everything a Padawan had learned about controlling both their abilities and themselves. Think of it as the difference between knowing how to swing a lightsaber and understanding when not to draw it at all. In the traditional temple setting, this trial took multiple forms. Sometimes Padawans deflected volleys of blaster fire while blindfolded, exactly like loose training aboard the Millennium Falcon. Other times, they navigated complex obstacle courses requiring precise telekinesis, enhanced athletics, and tactical thinking simultaneously. Imagine maintaining perfect emotional control while levitating multiple objects in specific patterns and navigating moving platforms. One spike of frustration could throw everything off balance. The most legendary completions happened in actual combat. During the Clone Wars, Anakin's numerous victories against Separatist forces, particularly his duels with Count Dooku's assassins, demonstrated skill beyond any temple test. These weren't controlled scenarios. Enemies genuinely tried to kill him. Surviving and winning proved his mastery of lightsaber combat, force abilities, and tactical thinking under lethal pressure. Masters evaluated discipline as heavily as swordsmanship. They wanted perfect form execution, not flashy moves. Could a Padawan maintain defensive stances for hours? Could they fluidly switch between the 7 lightsaber forms based on their opponent's style? Most importantly, did they recognize when combat wasn't the answer? The trial of skill paradoxically tested a Jedi's ability to avoid using their skills when unnecessary. The Clone Wars revolutionized this trial scope. Padawan suddenly commanded clone battalions, requiring military tactics, strategic planning, and coordination between force abilities and conventional warfare. Ahsoka Tano exemplified this evolution through successful campaigns, innovative strategies, and adaptability against everything from destroyer droids to Mandalorian warriors. Her ability to merge Jedi techniques with military leadership represented the new standard. What made this trial uniquely challenging was its demand for absolute presence. Unlike trials dealing with internal struggles or philosophical questions, the trial of skill required perfect balance between instinct and training. You couldn't overthink or rely purely on emotion. Success meant achieving that elusive state where conscious technique merged with unconscious flow, where the Force guided your actions without overwhelming your judgment. The trial ultimately asked, can you wield power without being controlled by it? Can you maintain discipline under chaos? Can you adapt your skills to serve others rather than dominate them? These questions transformed a simple combat test into a profound evaluation of a Padawan's readiness to carry a lightsaber, and the responsibility that came with it. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the Star Wars universe, consider subscribing for more videos like this. The trial of courage tested who you were when everything went catastrophically wrong. This trial stripped away training, philosophy, and force techniques to ask one brutal question. When faced with certain death, will you stand your ground for something greater than yourself? The beauty and terror of this trial was its authenticity. You can't fake courage when your body screams to run. The Council looked for specific markers: steady hands when drawing your lightsaber against overwhelming odds, clear decision-making under extreme pressure, and most importantly, the willingness to act despite paralyzing fear, not in its absence. Some Padawans faced controlled trials within the temple through holographic simulations designed to trigger their deepest fears. But simulated trials, while terrifying, could never replicate the raw, primal fear or actual mortal danger. That's why many of the most respected knights passed their trial of courage in the field where death was genuinely possible. Obi-Wan Kenobi's trial remains the most iconic in Jedi history. At 25, he watched Qui-Gon Jinn, his master, his father figure, get cut down by Darth Maul, a Sith Lord everyone believed extinct for a millennium. Maul wasn't just any opponent. He was a nightmare with a double-bladed lightsaber who had just killed a Jedi Master. Young Obi-Wan, dangling over a melting pit, weaponless and alone, chose to leap directly at this monster. That moment, that impossible, insane, gloriously brave moment, was courage distilled to its purest form. The Clone Wars provided endless courage trials, though not all Padawans survived them. The Battle of Genesis alone served as a massive trial for dozens of Padawans surrounded by thousands of battle droids, watching masters fall around them. Those who kept fighting, who didn't break ranks even as friends died beside them, passed a trial more severe than anything the temple could design. But courage wasn't just physical bravery. The Jedi understood that moral courage could be even harder. Standing up to the Council when you believed they were wrong, refusing orders that violated your principles, or choosing to save enemies, these acts required different strength. Ahsoka Tano demonstrated this when she stood trial for a crime she didn't commit, maintaining her integrity even when her entire order turned against her. The trial's cruelty lay in its finality. You couldn't retake it like a failed exam. When that crystalline moment arrived, when you had to choose between safety and duty, you either rose to meet it or you didn't. And if you didn't, there usually wasn't a second chance. True courage meant acknowledging fear and choosing your principles anyway. The trial of the flesh represents perhaps the most misunderstood of all Jedi trials. While many immediately think of physical pain or injury, this trial encompasses something far deeper. It tests endurance, loss, sacrifice, and the ability to continue forward when parts of yourself, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, have been permanently torn away. Historically, this trial evolved significantly across different eras. Ancient Jedi practices included ritualistic tests of physical endurance, but by the Republic era, the Order recognized that life itself provided sufficient opportunities for this trial without artificially creating trauma. The galaxy, as it turns out, excels at making beings suffer without any assistance from the Jedi Council. The most visceral canonical example remains Anakin Skywalker losing his right arm to Count Dooku during their duel on Genesis. The imagery carries almost poetic weight, the Chosen One, permanently marked by loss, carrying a mechanical reminder of his limitations. But what truly made this a trial of the flesh wasn't just the amputation itself, it was everything that followed. The phantom pain that never fully disappeared, the constant reminder with every glance at his mechanical hand that he'd been weak, that he'd failed. The way it fundamentally changed his fighting style, his relationship with his body, his sense of wholeness. Both Skywalkers, father and son, passed their trial of the flesh through nearly identical losses. When Vader severed Luke's hand at Cloud City, he unknowingly administered the same trial he himself had endured. Luke's response, refusing to join Vader despite the agony, despite hanging over an abyss both literal and metaphorical, marked not just his passage through the trial, but his fundamental difference from his father. Where Anakin's loss fed his anger and fear, Luke's became a source of empathy and understanding. The trial wasn't always about dramatic dismemberment. Sometimes it manifested as chronic conditions Padawans learned to work through, or temporary loss of Force connection. Imagine suddenly losing the sense you've relied on your entire life. For many, it came through witnessing death of beloved masters or friends, a different kind of flesh torn away, but equally painful. During the Clone Wars, this trial took devastating new forms. Padawans watched clone troopers they'd fought beside, whose thoughts they touched through the Force, die by the hundreds. They endured separatist torture and survived injuries, leaving them permanently changed. The war ensured nearly every surviving Padawan had passed their trial of the flesh multiple times over. The emotional component often proved harder than physical pain. Death, betrayal, loss of innocence, these wounds couldn't be healed with Bacta or prosthetics. They required a different healing that could take years. Those who passed weren't those who felt no pain, but those who could carry their scars without being consumed by them. If facing Sith Lords seemed terrifying, wait until you meet the opponent in the Trial of the Spirit: yourself. This trial dove deep into the darkest corners of a Padawan's psyche, forcing confrontation not just with fears, but with temptations, shadows, and the version of themselves they desperately pretended didn't exist. The Trial of the Spirit often manifested through Force visions, deep meditation, or spontaneous experiences triggered by places strong in the Force. The Jedi understood that everyone, regardless of pure intentions, carried darkness within them. The trial didn't test whether you had darkness. That was assumed. It tested whether you could face that darkness honestly, without denial or surrender. The most famous example remains Luke's vision in the cave on Dagobah. This scene represents the Trial of the Spirit distilled to its essence. Luke enters armed, despite Yoda's warning, already showing his fear. He faces Vader, his enemy, his nightmare, and strikes him down only to see his own face behind the mask. In that moment, the cave revealed a truth Luke wouldn't fully understand until Return of the Jedi. The capacity for evil wasn't in some distant Sith Lord, it was within him. He could become Vader. That potential lived in his heart, waiting for the right combination of fear, anger, and pain to awaken it. What makes Luke's trial particularly interesting is that he arguably failed it. He brought weapons when instructed not to. He struck in anger rather than seeking understanding. He left more confused than enlightened. But sometimes, failure in the Trial of the Spirit was itself instructive. The point wasn't always overcoming darkness in one dramatic moment. Sometimes it was simply acknowledging its existence. Master Yoda himself underwent a Trial of the Spirit during the Clone Wars when journeying to Moraband, the ancient Sith homeworld. Even at nearly 900 years old, as Grand Master, Yoda faced his own shadows. The visions he encountered, Jedi falling, himself succumbing to darkness, the Order's destruction, weren't just fears but prophecies he was powerless to prevent. His trial involved accepting that powerlessness without despair. The temple contained specific meditation chambers designed to trigger spiritual trials. Padawans would enter deep trances, sometimes for days, wrestling with inner demons made manifest through the Force. Some emerged with profound clarity, others emerged shaken, having seen futures where they become the evil they'd sworn to fight. Successfully completing this trial didn't mean conquering darkness. That was impossible and unhealthy. Instead, it meant achieving integrated awareness, acknowledging your shadow without being controlled by it. Those who passed understood a fundamental truth. The dark side wasn't some external corruption. It was part of them, and pretending otherwise was the first step toward falling. The Trial of Insight might be the most subtle of all trials, but don't mistake subtle for easy. While other trials tested your body, courage, or spirit, the Trial of Insight tested something even more fundamental. Your ability to perceive truth in a universe built on deception, find clarity in chaos, and solve problems that couldn't be cut through with a lightsaber. This trial recognized that the greatest Jedi victories often came not from combat, but from understanding. It tested pattern recognition, intuitive leaps, investigative skills, and the ability to see through illusions both literal and metaphorical. In many ways, it separated competent Force users from true Jedi Knights. In the temple, the Trial of Insight took various forms. Some Padawans faced the high riddles of Duardi, ancient philosophical puzzles with no single correct answer that revealed deep truths about the solver's thought process. Others might be given thousands of stones and asked to find a single grain of sand among them, requiring not just patience, but a fundamental shift in perception. You couldn't check every stone. You had to feel the difference, understand what you were really seeking. The most powerful trials of insight happened in the real world, where missing crucial details meant death for thousands. Obi-Wan Kenobi's discovery of the deleted Camino system from the Jedi archives stands as one of the most consequential trials of insight in galactic history. Consider what this required: recognizing something wrong with gravitational data, having the humility to seek help from younglings who saw what adults couldn't, then following that thread to uncover a conspiracy hidden for over a decade. That investigation revealed not just the clone army, but the depths of deception surrounding the Jedi Order. During the Clone Wars, Ahsoka Tano repeatedly demonstrated mastery through her investigative work. Whether uncovering corruption on Mandalore, solving murders implicating high-ranking officials, or piecing together separatist plots, she showed an ability to see patterns others missed. Her insight went beyond solving mysteries. She could read people, understanding motivations and fears in ways that allowed her to predict actions. The trial also tested ability to see through the Force itself. Visions of the future, echoes of the past, sensing truth or deception in words, these weren't party tricks but essential survival skills. A Jedi who couldn't distinguish between true Force visions and traps wouldn't last long. The most dramatic failures in Jedi history came from failures of insight. The entire Order failed to perceive Palpatine's true nature despite him operating under their noses for years. This collective failure of insight contributed directly to their downfall, proving that even Masters could fail this most crucial trial. Here's what nobody tells you about the Jedi trials. They were surprisingly flexible. During peacetime, Masters would petition the Council when their Padawan was ready, and specific challenges would be designed, but the Council always recognized when life itself had already administered the tests. Take the Battle of Genesis. That single day served as all 5 trials simultaneously. Survivors demonstrated skill through combat, courage against impossible odds, endured the flesh trial through injuries and loss, faced spiritual trials in resisting revenge, and showed insight by recognizing the trap. The Council knighted many survivors immediately, including Anakin. The Clone Wars revolutionized everything. With Jedi dying faster than knights could be traditionally trained, the war became one continuous trial. Ahsoka's wrongful accusation became her trials even though she never asked for them. The Council's offer to knight her afterward proved they recognized her ordeal surpassed any formal test. Failed trials were handled with surprising compassion. Padawans could try again later or join the service corps. The Jedi understood not everyone was meant for knighthood, and there was no shame in serving differently. These trials aren't just arbitrary obstacles. They're a profound statement about wielding power responsibly. The Jedi were handing lightsabers and near limitless Force abilities to people, then sending them to make decisions affecting billions. Each trial addresses a fundamental question. Can you control your power? Will you use it when needed? Can you endure loss? Can you face your darkness? Can you see clearly enough to use power wisely? The tragedy is that even these comprehensive trials couldn't prevent the Order's fall. They tested for courage, but not for wisdom to question orders. They tested for insight, but not humility to admit systemic failures. Every Jedi who fell to the dark side had passed their trials. Every hero who saved the galaxy had moments where they failed them. The real lesson? No test guarantees someone will always make the right choice. The trials could prepare Jedi for challenges, but couldn't make choices for them. What matters isn't perfection. It's the willingness to keep growing, recognizing that becoming a knight isn't the end, but another beginning. So, there you have it. The complete breakdown of the 5 Jedi trials, from ancient origins to their tragic end with Order 66. These weren't just combat tests, but profound challenges designed to forge complete beings capable of wielding unimaginable power with wisdom and restraint. Next time you watch Anakin lose his hand, Luke enter that cave, or Ahsoka walk away from the Order, remember, you're witnessing the trials in action. These defining moments aren't random trauma, but part of an ancient tradition that recognized a fundamental truth. Power without wisdom leads only to darkness. What's your take? Were the trials too harsh or not harsh enough? Could formal trials have saved Anakin? Drop your thoughts below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. We've got plenty more Star Wars mysteries to unravel. Until next time, may the Force be with you, and remember, your trials aren't about passing or failing. They're about who you become along the way.